Hi, Jessica.
Hi,
Well,
Pranay. Good to see you.
good to see you as well. Welcome to another episode of the New Resilience Podcast. Really excited to have you here. We've known each other for like quite some time. You've been an early part of our journey. So, I mean, it's a privilege to like get you on the podcast and like talk about your journey. So I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Do I maybe have the honor of being the only new resilience customer to have signed on with you two times thus
Oh
far?
yeah, that is oh yeah. That is true. Like you've showed faith in us twice. So like really
It just is
appreciate it.
that good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Just keeps on giving.
that's right.
Awesome. All right. So let's get straight into it. Again, the podcast for like whoever's listening in is about folks like you who've had extensive, amazing experiences in the behavioral health space. And the idea is for like people listening to be able to learn from those experiences so that you can share your stories so people can understand like your journeys, what's worked, what hasn't worked, some of the trends that you're sort of seeing, and really like making it in some way um, um, like encouraging even people to like join the space because that I mean it's a much needed space where we need good people like you to be coming in. So yeah, just excited to have that conversation with you.
For
um
sure.
let's get started with sort of like your story, like overall when it comes to you being in the behavioral health. So maybe like walk us through sort of from the early days as to like, did you already kind of know you were going to sort of be in the space? What sort of like got you into behavioral health, mental health, and I guess, and towards the later end, like what has sort of kept you going? um,
Yeah. So it's that's a funny question because I have heard a lot of people who have said like I always knew that this is what I wanted to do, or
mm,
had like a formative experience that really like pulled them into the mental health, behavioral health field.
yeah,
Um, I tried my hardest not to be in the behavioral health
interesting.
field.
Okay.
Yes. So when I went to college, I took a psych class early on, and I was like, I really like this. Maybe I want to make psychology like my major.
Okay.
And I remember my dad was dead set against it. Like, absolutely not. You will never make any money in social services. You need to
Mhm.
do business, like, you need to do accounting. And
Right.
so I tried. And I probably changed my major 8 times in
Wow.
college and just kept coming back to psychology classes, and eventually kind of gave in that, like, okay, I guess that there's something here that
Yeah.
speaks to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the rest was history. I tried to resist the pull as long as I could, but
Wow.
the universe was best
Eight moves
determined.
and then yeah,
Yeah,
it's clearly was meant to be.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
So from there, uh, I kind of went into the field in a behavior analyst role and did some fee for service, clinical kind of work, consulting. Uh, but again, just like the universe calling me a certain way, I just really kept getting pulled to more of like an administrative or operations role, regardless of what role I was supposed to be in.
mm.
And so yet again, kind of just giving into the pull and
Was
letting the
that to do with?
universe take me a direction.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted
Yeah.
you, but was that to do with sort of? Do you like the organization or like the operations side of things in some sense? Because it seems like it's a mix of like the therapeutic or like the mental health side, but also the business operations side that you were kind of drawn to.
Yeah, it turns out that as I grew up, the business side of things actually is kind of interesting. I would never have said that as a 20-year
Mm.
old. But yeah, so it certainly is interesting. But I think what really pulled me into this kind of like leadership role was um, wanting to have a bigger impact at the operational, like the organization level versus with individual cases. um, I saw, early on in my career how that can be really limiting for the work of clinicians and affect client outcomes, and that administrators and people who are operating programs really have the opportunity to, create culture and build norms that support clinical work being effective, being
Mm-hmm.
uh, woven into every aspect of the program. And that's really,
Right.
I think, what pulled me into this, that I wanted to be able to create systems where people can do really good clinical work and have really impactful uh,
Mm-hmm.
interactions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so then, did you like keep sort of like plug like as you went through your career, maybe like walk through that a little bit, where you kept sort of gravitating towards this higher impact roles, where it was more about how do you essentially, in some sense, set up the culture of the place,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think, ooh, that's an interesting question. I guess we can start here that um, I, especially early in my career, really recognized at one point that like I was a yes person, right? Give me that extra project.
Mm.
I can take that on. I can help out in this way. And I've always found kind of getting different experiences and taking on new challenges to just be really like engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also, I guess, is a cautionary tale. Like, if you're recognizing that in yourself as somebody listening to this, be careful because 100% it's a recipe for burnout. You
Right.
can't say yes to everything. You can't
Right.
take on every new challenge. But um, I mean, to be just like frank, sometimes I would watch the way that systems were operating and think like there's just a better way, right?
Mm.
There's a way that we all can win together. It doesn't have to be one person's way or the highway. It doesn't have to be one department that is always right or driving change. And so I kept getting pulled into these little projects, and wanting more, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
Plus, as I was doing the more clinically oriented work, I was working with a pretty challenging population. And so, pulling your hair back, knowing that at some point that day, somebody's going to punch you, like your hair is going to
Mm.
be
Wow.
pulled. I had this whole hierarchy that, like, if I was punched, at least it wasn't my hair being pulled. And if my hair was being pulled, at least I wasn't bit. And
Wow.
if I was bit, then at least I wasn't spit on. And so I realized at
How
some
many
point
levels
that,
are
like,
there? Wow.
of more than you probably want to
Yeah.
share
Yeah. Yeah.
with the listeners on the podcast. It goes pretty deep. But I realized at some point, like, this is not a recipe for me enjoying this work for the rest of my life. Not that there's I mean, I have such respect for people that day in and day out, can be in those situations and keep in mind the mission and
Yeah.
why they're doing what they're doing.
Mm.
It's a beautiful thing. But uh, there were aspects of the work that I was not super sad to say goodbye to. I will
Mm.
be totally honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. We
Yep.
want people to be real here.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's still again, it's still a fairly again hard sector to like keep going. You've regulation, you have pairs you're like trying to work with. So and again, you're trying to handle the business, the clinical side, working with patients, etc. What keeps you motivated to like keep going in some sense?
Yeah. I have found it's the people
Mm.
is what it all comes back to.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ultimate reward when you have worked with somebody and seen them, grow from someone so deeply depressed that they can hardly get out of bed, right?
Mm,
And all of a sudden they're flourishing. They're ready to get back to college. They have the skills
yeah.
that they need to manage the ups and downs. Those moments, like you really hang on to those moments of celebration.
Mm,
And in a tough, like a tough, challenging day, that it's nice to be able to think back to
mm,
those reasons. But something that I have also found to be really motivating is watching staff grow and helping staff
mm.
to grow in in their skills, in their careers, and uh, that definitely keeps me coming back as a leader and continuing to show up even when things are
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah, yeah. Okay. No, that's yeah. So like there are those moments where you again see the clients flourishing or like the staff flourishing is where you're saying it kind of makes it all worth it
Yeah,
and more.
that's the payday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really a good way of putting it. Um, so maybe so you've like you said you've gone through like a number of roles. Maybe if you can talk about like a transition into like the current role as again the head of Spruce Mountain. Maybe talk a little bit about that. What are you excited about? How did you, get into the role? And yeah, what is top of mind these days for you?
Yeah. So I am new to Spruce Mountain Inn. I took on the executive director role this spring in April. And, uh, it's a program that I have known for a long time and have had relationships with a number of leaders at Spruce over the years.
Yeah.
And just have really, really enjoyed the program and the clientele that we work with here. So the transition has been, I mean, amazing and almost honeymoon like
Mm,
in how easy it's been in so many ways. You talked about culture uh, earlier. You mentioned, how do you create the culture, and um, it has been fantastic to come to Spruce where there is already just a really strong culture of paying attention to what our residents need, to clinical excellence, and really, I think about culture as like the feeling you get when you walk through the door. And every time I came to Spruce before starting, and every time since, you know, you walk through the door and you feel warmth, and there's somebody to greet you with a smile and take a moment to talk about how the day is going. And that's true for our staff, and it's also true for our residents. It's an amazing bunch full of people that just like really care about one another and
yeah,
help lift each other up. Uh, so that's been really special.
yeah. That's really heartwarming to hear as well. Uh,
Yeah,
Um, so maybe like as we are thinking about again the audience who might be listening to this, like let's maybe also get into like some tactical stuff that especially like
yeah,
program leaders like you would really find useful and interesting. So let's talk about like what you're seeing in the industry. Like you've seen, I'm sure, like a few transitions over the course of the period that you've been in here. So when it comes to like trends that you're seeing in the industry that you think are, you know, maybe not as obvious to people or like you think people like you're paying real close attention to and having to essentially transform things or like the way that you do things. Maybe talk about some of them.
yeah. I think some folks are probably pretty aware of the shift or drive toward outcomes and accountability, and really like that being built into payer models. And that's a really good thing, and as a provider can be scary and can be labor intensive.
Sure.
But I think something that I've seen that is long overdue is really more demand, not just a desire, but a demand for changes in regard to access to care. So I've been in private pay residential treatment uh, since like 2011, I think. And at the beginning of that time, there was just kind of an acceptance that like this isn't something that health insurance pays
Mm,
for.
right.
And good, bad, or otherwise, it's there's not even a conversation to be had, which really meant that access to care at that level was limited, like
Very
not
limited.
by need or by the number of providers, but by people's ability to pay.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's icky. And I've seen, people getting so creative and fighting the good fight and being innovative uh, and really more of a demand that the insurance companies pony up and pay their part and treat mental health services with the same
Hmm.
expectations of parity that you would have for medical services.
That's super interesting and encouraging too. Like, so when you think about, again, people who are listening, so if you're trying to like look at a program and making sure it's more accessible to people, are there particular practices that you're putting in place? Like, I think you talked about outcomes to sort of like make it more attractive for, or like palatable for insurance players to sort of come in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have been at Spruce really excited to roll out out of network insurance reimbursement
Mm,
for folks in our program and working with some folks who are really experts in the field. And I think that's important, as a small program, oftentimes feeling like you have to know everything and be
mm,
everything. But the opportunity to really work and consult with experts and learn how to build programming that meets the requirements and weave that into the structure that already exists. It wasn't a small undertaking, but we found that we were able to make the needed shifts and still stay true to who we've always been as a program and the practices that make Spruce special and
yeah.
meeting the needs of our clients. So um,
Can you talk about a
there's
few examples there, maybe just to shed some light there? If
no, yeah, absolutely. So understanding some of the basics, the kind of the common denominators in terms of frequency of access to psychiatry, how many numbers of therapy have to be provided. And, out of that, what is individual therapy, what's group therapy, and what kinds of group therapy are
hmm,
insurance companies looking for? And and sometimes it's a relatively small shift, right? It's making sure that you're not only doing adventure therapy, but using that in a process oriented group um, to to help make sure that it's meeting all
yeah,
of the clinical needs and the needs of the insurance companies for reimbursement.
okay,
So that's a great example. Making sure, we have always at Spruce done a morning check-in with
mm,
residents and really taking the opportunity to make that more of a clinically oriented check-in
mm,
uh, has been really well received by our residents and also pleases those who rule the insurance world.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got it. And so, and this is increasingly something that you're instituting. And does that require you to constantly keep updated with like what the pairs need? Does it like vary a lot by the pair? Like how you sort of like keeping on top of all of it?
Experts and technology.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Without those two things, without a really good partner and some really good tech systems in place to make sure that we are understanding the needs when we're taking on a case, it would be
Hmm.
probably impossible
Okay.
without staff that are dedicated to that full time.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So then when we're thinking about like the front end of the business as well, like admissions and like the business development side, like these trends are like if there are like some other trends that are there in the industry right now that are f- like making you think about maybe transforming the way that you've been doing traditionally doing admissions and business development. Are there any such aspects there that you can think of?
You know, one other trend that I have really seen taking off, early on in my experience with residential treatment, the focus was really like my loved one needs a place where they can stay safe and stable.
Sure.
And then the expectation, as it should be, really became my loved one needs a safe place where they can reach stability, learn to maintain it, and then launch into independence.
Hmm.
And what I'm seeing now is much more of a demand for a like a treatment to transition model that families don't
Interesting.
and residents don't want or typically benefit from a kind of a 0 to 60 approach.
Too high a jump, that is.
Yeah, that going from, from a residential treatment model straight to outpatient
Yeah.
therapy and med management, it just leaves too much room for bumps in the
Yeah.
road to become uh,
Yeah.
huge setbacks. And
Right.
so, really making sure that they into programs is a step down model
Hmm.
has been really important, particularly at the past couple of places that I've worked.
Yeah. Okay. And so then does that require you to like, are you seeing like people typically create those step down programs within their ambit itself, or is it like developing relationships and like very trusted relationships of like where they can sort of like walk their um, clients through to.
I think both and I think partnerships have been maybe more of a traditional way to
Mm,
meet that need. But what I see more and more is
mm,
that folks want to stay with their team that they've come to trust, right? So
mm.
they're wanting an experience where you can go from a higher level of care, that residential or subacute care,
Yeah.
all the way through to, living in an apartment with maybe IOP level support, maybe aftercare options where you're still connected to that same treatment team, where you're still seeing your same therapist and
Mm.
they're following you from level to level. So, that does require, internal build out.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Because again, the trust is, I'm guessing, like the hardest one to establish for folks who are coming in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
takes.
And, we see increasingly folks who've been sometimes, oftentimes traumatized by their experiences in the mental health system.
Mm.
Uh, and so trying to create, a trauma informed system of care, part of that is people aren't having to tell their story again and again, and they're not
Yeah.
having to justify their needs
Yeah.
or adapt to your way of doing things unnecessarily that um, if we can eliminate some of that it can just really ease the
100%.
whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, no surprises that that would be much better outcomes for the clients as well. So better
Yeah,
for everyone involved. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Um, so when you're thinking about like these trends and like again on the admissions and like the marketing side, what are some again core operational like KPIs or I guess outcomes that you're trying to monitor on like an ongoing basis and improve?
Yeah, I think Of course, clinical outcomes matter, but there's a whole bunch of other metrics that that we're also thinking about. Length of stay,
Yeah.
uh, engagement, client engagement levels, engagement uh, with partners. As
Mm.
well, when we're thinking about like the outreach and marketing aspects
Yeah.
of this, kind of before you get to that client that's being served. Um,
How do you measure
but
engagement with
also,
partners? Sorry, interrupt.
ooh, new resilience, of course.
Okay.
No, keeping an eye on how frequently you're staying in touch, and the digital world that we live in makes that much easier. But there's also some differences between like a Zoom with someone
Yeah.
and that face to face interaction, actually going to a program and seeing it. And
Yeah.
so um, I think, engagement, there's a cadence and reciprocity that you're looking for, but also just like what are the quality of
Mm.
interactions that you're able to have with this partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then just, being really familiar, I think, from a business perspective, of things like, what are your conversion rates? How long does it take to uh,
Hmm.
go from, first phone call to admission day on a new client? Because the more you understand that, the earlier on in the process, you notice if there's a change, whether it's an uptick in calls, whether it's that the
Yeah.
phones aren't ringing as much. And if you can make some changes at that point, whether it's, preparing your program for an influx and making sure that you've got all of your resources in place,
Yeah.
or making sure that you're upping the ante when it comes to being a good partner and communicator with referral sources. um, if you can catch it early on
Right.
by
Right.
predicting trends based on past data, it just really can prevent so many problems down the road.
Yeah. Like time saved, money saved. Just spending time, like the precious time that you have on like the right things in some
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, and ultimately about client care. Our residents, we are a small program, but if our census gets too small,
Mm.
groups don't feel as robust, right?
Right.
People don't
Right.
have as many people to create a social network with.
Right. Right. Right.
And so really trying to keep it at that sweet spot.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. That's a really interesting point because it's the yeah the group dynamics also matter a huge amount
Yeah.
in the outcomes is sort of what you're saying.
Yeah. I think particularly, when it's a residential community and a longer length of stay,
Yeah.
um, probably as important as the therapeutic work happening is the milieu, right? What does it
Yeah.
feel like to be a part of your program?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Um, on the concept or like on the on the topic of making life easier, we've seen cases where there's a lot of manual work that's involved, administrative work that's there besides the client care or like attending to like the potential clients who are coming in. Um, are there opportunities that you see where you could reduce that to bring efficiencies and essentially increase in some sense access to care for the people that you're caring for?
Yeah. On any given day, at a small program like ours, I might be a marketer and
Mm.
an admissions coordinator and a plumber
Mm.
and
Wow.
and a cook and all the things in one. Uh,
Uh,
and I'm happy to do all of those things.
mm,
But when you can't do those things because of the heaps of paperwork,
mm,
that's a bummer. And I see that, like, particularly clinicians, a lot of burnout stems from overly cumbersome. documentation practices.
Right.
That's not why anyone got into this. And of
Yeah.
course, it's important, but um, that's a place where I have really seen technology being so important in lightening the burden
Hmm.
so that we really can focus on the people, on our
Hmm.
residents, on the clinical care, not on, making sure that I carve out enough time to make a
Yeah.
note about the conversation that I had, but just really being present in the conversation.
Right. 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 Yeah. Let the technology do the work to the extent possible, and you can focus
Yeah.
on like the human to human interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like with AI, for example, that fear that like the machines will take our jobs. Like I absolutely don't see that in this kind
Yeah.
of field that, no, the machines can help us have the time to do the human aspects of the job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an enhancement and not a replacement.
Yeah.
Is kind of like what you're getting to. Um, let's talk about like leadership for a bit. Like you're in the ED role now. What are maybe some like ways in which you are approaching it? Maybe some principles that you're like trying to instill in the way you run the operations that you've learned over time and you see are kind of like working for people out there to learn from.
Yeah. I think as a leader, being really connected to your why, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, kind of that commitment to quality and providing services that I would feel good about my loved one receiving, creating environments where I would want to be in treatment if I needed that level of
Hmm.
support. That is really like my North Star. That's the thing that guides all of the decisions that I make. And when, inevitably you get into that like gray area and you're not sure what to do, I find it super helpful um, to try to come back to that and like, how is this going to impact the experience of the people that we serve? Is it going to
Hmm.
help? Is it going to hurt? Is it going to be a short term
Yeah.
ouch for long term benefit? And so, regardless of the scenario, kind of keeping that in mind, because leadership, it looks so different for different people. Um, and I think good leaders inherently have some ability to be flexible in their approach and show up the way that the situation demands of them.
Hmm.
Um, I just don't think there's a one size fits
Sure.
all in terms of leadership styles or in terms of like an approach as a leader to every single situation.
Hmm.
Um, but but also, keeping in mind leading by serving. And so if anyone is new to leadership or thinking that they're interested in being a leader in behavioral health, looking up that philosophy of servant leadership, I think is a really good place to start. I
Hmm.
think that when you get too disconnected as a leader and you forget that you're there actually to support everybody else that
Right.
works
Right.
at that organization and make their jobs easier. Um, yeah, you lose something really important
Mm.
if you don't keep that mindset.
And you're saying it's especially like that principle or like that way of thinking is really pertinent to behavioral health specifically. Is it just the nature of I mean the work that you do, the people who are in the industry, is that what makes it even more sort of prevalent, suitable?
Yeah, I think it maybe goes back to that idea of culture and
Mm.
what kind of tone do you want to set as a leader? And
Mm.
I want the people who are, right there working side by side with our residents to I don't act not act as servants, but to really
Yeah,
be
yeah,
there to provide the support and show up the way that that client needs them to show up.
right.
Uh, and so I think as a leader, role modeling that I am going to show up the way that you need me to show up to support you so that
Hmm.
you can do the best job possible in your role. Uh, I think that's important in this kind of field where, taking care of other humans is what we do.
Yeah, yeah. Is there like a particular example? I really like the idea what you said of like going back to the why. Is there
Yeah.
perhaps like a situation or like example that you can share where uh, you kind of had to sort of like go back to that to sort of like move forward, take a decision, what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Budgeting is always a time where you really have to go back to the why.
Right,
I remember a particular year where numbers hadn't been uh, what we as a program wanted or needed them to be, and thinking about ways that we could cut expenses to make sure that uh, the ends met and that we continued to be, a viable option for people.
right.
Um, and thinking about where can we tighten up operations and where can't we? You've got to take care of the people who are
Hmm.
taking care of your residents.
Yeah,
If you don't have them, you've got nothing,
right, right.
right? And so that kind of like why do I have such a strong reaction to not, cutting hours or, limiting pay increases
Yeah,
or whatnot? Like
yeah, that's
if
the
our staff are
core.
strapped and stressed and having to work two or three jobs to make ends meet and feed their kids, like we're not doing our job. Yeah, we've
Yeah,
got to look at this a different way.
yeah. Yeah, so like you mentioned earlier, it kind of comes back to the why is the people. So it
Yeah.
has to come back to the people, and they are at the core of they are the one that are running it, and the
Yeah.
servant
And if you've been, working, this is your third job and
Yeah,
you're working 80 hours a week, how are you going to show up for our residents?
yeah, yeah. Cannot be good for anyone involved, for that
No,
matter. Yeah,
no.
yeah. Um, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so and then on the leadership side, like the other aspect I did want to talk to you about was that again from what we see, behavioral health still continues to be a fairly male dominated industry, and like you are again a female leader in this space, and I'm sure like there's a lot of aspiring women leaders who are out there. So um maybe something that you can share about what has worked for you. Like sure there's situations that happen where you have to show up a certain way, and like balancing there's a balancing act there as well. So maybe talk about that a little bit. How has that journey been for you?
Yeah. Leaning into the hard questions. I'm really glad that this
Yeah,
came up. Because there is this kind of dichotomy that, when you look at a certain level of behavioral health professional, it is predominantly female. But where is that level? It's the folks who are on those front lines doing those caregiving tasks,
right.
right? Um the support staff, the residential staff, the therapists oftentimes. But once you get to a certain level of leadership, all of a sudden things change pretty dramatically. And there have been plenty of times where you look around the room and realize I am by far the minority in this room.
Yeah,
And that's okay. But there was this, I mean, just super blatant in your face experience that I had when I was really starting to hone my leadership skills and try to move from kind of a middle management um, to more of like an executive management
Mm-hmm.
position. And I was interviewing for a role, and like the concern came up that like the man interviewing me couldn't imagine me going golfing with business partners.
And that's the criteria for leading an organization.
Apparently. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Because I can't hang on the golf course with a bunch of dudes.
Right.
And true, fair. I belong nowhere near a golf course.
Right.
And I don't think that that impacts my ability to do my job. Uh, so, no, I'm not going to be the person at the golf outing, throwing one back with the boys. But there's so many other ways to be successful in this
Right.
field that have nothing to do with that.
Right.
I mean, that was almost like a light switch moment for me that, wow, like it's not even like hidden, right? This is just
Yeah.
out
Very
there.
out
You're not one
there.
of the boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I guess really causes me to reflect that, I have had a lot of really strong like female mentors and just kind of shined a light for me on how blessed I've been to have
Mm.
had those experiences and how important it is to be that for the next generation, right? How to support and lift up uh, other women who are entering this field, and how to create networks of support with other female leaders, so that you don't get this misconception that this is only happening to you,
Right.
or that there's, that somehow you're not good enough.
Mm.
Because it's typically not us, right? It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
maybe the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, so are you actively like sort of part of these sort of mentoring circles where you're sort of, in some sense, I think you're giving back to the folks who
Yeah,
are potentially starting out. Uh,
absolutely. And I think that, as we think about our networks in behavioral health, that's a really important network to develop. And sometimes organizations can certainly be a big part of that. So, the American Residential Treatment Association has definitely been an organization where I've
mhm.
connected with other female leaders that I have learned from, and have had the blessing to be able to, I think, be the same for some of the younger female leaders that have joined ARDA as well. But also something that I have very purposely and intentionally cultivated um, in each organization that I've worked at, and
Mhm.
that I've continued even after, if I've left a role. I still regularly keep in touch
Mm.
and mentor some folks from, way back in the day. And that's just a really
That's
beautiful
awesome.
uh, way to give back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really awesome. Um, Maybe after the interview, like there could be a number of people reach out to you. So if you're doing that, then we're doing a job with the podcast. So I'm excited for that.
Let's
Um,
see.
yeah. And then,
Mm.
so then on like, I think the concept of relationships, and like, I think something that we also hear about, and yeah, I think you kind of touched on like the concept of like partnership, trusted partnerships too. Um, what do you think about like, again, the concept of, or like the importance of sort of building community in this space, and 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 very tactically it relates to, I guess, referrals and like that business relationship, but broadly, I think what we see is like this need to have this connected nature of a host of the providers and the centers out there, and um, like, and there's probably some advantage in being able to engender that. Like Arta does that in an amazing manner, and like there's some organizations that do it too. But how do you sort of like think about it? like the importance of like building out that community or like contributing to it.
Yeah, I love that you I like that you brought up contributing to it because I think that's so important. I see in certain pockets of the behavioral health field, folks who are pretty transactional
Hmm.
at times, that it's kind of a scratch your back or scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
I'll send you a referral if you send me one back. And
Mm-hmm.
um, listen, like there, as much as we're here to help people, it's also a business, and I
100%.
can appreciate that. But at the end of the day, like if one of us wins, like we all win, right? We can all win together. There are so many people and so much work to be done in mental health in this country, and
Mm-hmm.
empowering and supporting each other and creating networks and partnerships where you can share best practices, where you can benefit from other people's expertise and share your own expertise. At the end of the day, who wins? All of us, but particularly the people
Mm.
that we serve, the people who need our services. Um, they do better if every single provider doesn't have to stumble their way through a
Yeah.
challenge. If you can reach out to another organization that has navigated that challenge, you can, you know, get the cheat
Yeah.
code and make it much less painless experience,
Yeah.
much less painful experience.
Yeah. Much less painful experience. That is
Yeah,
correct. And in some sense, like I guess it relates to just better client outcomes overall. And I think in some sense, like going beyond the short term, I give you a client, you give me one, to like sort of like the long term aspect of, just let's make sure there's we are serving the client first and foremost, and the rest of the things from a business standpoint will just follow from
they'll
there.
take care of. They won't take care of themselves, but they will. It will
Yeah.
follow. Yeah, I think not only is there so much work to be done, but there's so many different programs for a reason because people need different things. People
Mm-hmm.
want different things out of a
Mm-hmm.
program. And so I get plenty of calls that I know um, Spruce Mountain Inn is going to be a great fit. And then there's also calls that we get where I know that if this person were to come here,
Mm-hmm.
we're
So,
not the best positioned program to serve them.
right, right,
They would
right.
be better served by, um, fill in the blank. And
Yeah.
that's I think where it's really important to also have uh, to know not just who's out there and who takes what insurance and what level of care they provide, but who are those quality programs, right? To develop that kind of trust and a relationship so that you can confidently say, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
stake my relationship on sending you to this program that I know
Yeah.
is doing good work, that I know is ethical and
Yeah.
responsible. Because I think also, we as a field have suffered from like some bad actors. They get a whole lot of publicity.
Mm.
Uh, and it paints us all with a bad light,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be the person that referred to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you sort of like talking about trust, and I think almost two parts come to mind. One is actually looking at the network, looking at the community, and knowing who you can trust, knowing who you cannot, but also potentially having a system to, again, route the clients to like the right places when the time comes. Um, how you sort of managing that, and like um, and what are some ways you think maybe like things can improve?
Yeah.
if at all.
Yeah. It's important to have a warm handoff, I think, about, in terms of customer experience, in terms of, helping people get to the right place. It
Hmm.
is so hard to pick up the phone and call program after program uh,
Hmm.
and kind of weed through the options that, aren't accepting new clients or are out of your price range or don't serve people with your diagnosis
Hmm.
or whatever else. And so as much as we can remove those barriers and not say like, hey, here's this great program, call this 800 number and somebody will explain it to you. But,
Hmm.
call Pranoy at, the new resilience residential program. And he's got you, right? And, Pranoy, expect this call. Uh, that kind of human to human, uh,
Handoff.
warm
Yeah.
handoff it goes so far in terms
Yeah.
of folks following through and actually getting connected to the treatment that they need.
Mm.
Uh, if you just leave it to like, here's some great programs and you can
Yeah.
look at their website and get a number, um, chances are far greater, I have found, that they don't make that phone call.
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
100%.
and so, yeah, there is definitely a need for systems because with turnover, with how spread out things can be and how we can have such limited time, it can be hard to keep track of like, is Pranoy still the person to call for new
Mm.
resilience residential
Yeah.
treatment
Or like you
uh,
said, are they still accepting clients? Like having that information and not.
ahead of time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's certainly an area that we as a field can,
Hmm.
you know, get creative in and get innovative in and do
Yeah.
a little bit better.
Yeah. Even that piece that you mentioned about, I don't know if this also applies directly here of, how people like being around, like clients prefer being around like the same clinicians, etc., because there's essentially a lot of context that has been built out. So I'm guessing in terms of the one handoff, the ability to share context about like the patient, what they're suffering from, like what their needs are, etc., would also be potentially helpful for, so that I as a client, I just want to get care. I don't want to have to explain my needs and my situation over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, within the bounds of confidentiality, the more we can ease that process for the person receiving care. So they're, not telling you the eighth person on the
Yeah.
phone that they've never met about, the time that they were thinking about attempting suicide. That's
Yeah.
nobody's favorite thing to talk
Yeah.
about, but to do it
Yeah.
8 times when you're already struggling enough
Yeah.
to need residential care.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more that we can cut that out, I think the
Yeah.
better that
Yeah.
we'll see admissions go. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Um, one piece of advice that you would want to like maybe give to your younger self, like when you were starting out in the industry. Uh,
Mm, that's a hard one. One piece of advice, uh, don't say yes to everything. Certainly, I brought that up earlier, but
Yeah.
I think um, understanding what makes you tick, and understanding what motivates you, and making sure that you're putting yourself in places with people that share those values and that can help you grow, that can help empower you. It is such a valuable experience, and if you can purposefully seek that out as a young person in your career, gosh, the opportunities I think are limitless.
Okay. Yeah. That's super helpful for the
Yeah.
folks listening in. I think I'm sure they'll find it helpful. One other thing that again I'd love to know is there like a book or a movie that you recently come across that's inspired you or you would recommend to people?
Oh my gosh. So, uh, at the risk of sounding a certain kind of way,
Mm.
it's not a book or a movie, but there are some fantastic TikTok creators
Okay.
that keep coming my way on my For You page. Some folks that have lived experience and speak just really eloquently to what it's like to, for example, like live with schizophrenia.
Mm.
And if you don't have lived experience, uh,
Yeah.
it's so valuable to hear that perspective. Even
Yeah.
if you do have lived experience, it's probably
Yeah.
real valuable to hear that. So the one that comes to mind goes by Schizo Kitso on TikTok. And
Okay.
she's just fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. I'll check it out because yeah, like I said, if you don't have a little experience, but anything to, I guess, like get to a higher state of empathy is what would be helpful for everyone involved.
Yeah.
What comes to
Yeah.
mind. Yeah. Awesome. That kind of brings us to the end. I know, Jessica, if you had any other thoughts that were top of mind, would love to get that.
Oh, we've covered a lot today, haven't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
No, I mean, just thank you for having me on, and I guess thank you for being an innovator in this space. I think that the work that
Thank you.
you do, it doesn't replace relationships. It just makes them so much easier.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
hats off to you.
Yeah. Appreciate the shout out. Like, appreciate the partnership all through and hoping to do that for like a lot of years to come. So we're here for it. Where
Yes.
can folks reach you?
Oh, folks can reach me by going to our website, sprucemountainin.com. And there's a contact form there that comes straight to my inbox. So I am
Okay.
always happy to make new connections and learn about new programs and new people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll put that in. All right.
Hey, thanks.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank you,
now.
son.
Talk soon.
Talk soon.